Well, happy Monday morning to you folks, and welcome to Got Your Back live stream edition, brought to you by our good friends over at Mr. Dirk. Jason Strudwick standing by. Going to chat about what was an awesome weekend in sports, and we're going to look ahead to the Edmonton Oilers as they prepare for that silly season. Yes, the NHL draft and free agency is coming up. Of course, Got Your Back brought to you by Mr. Dirk, an iconic men's clothing brand and clothing store here in Edmonton, just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. Your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs, whatever you need. If you want to sharpen up your look around the office, they're the ones that can do that for you. Fantastic suits, shirts, ties, pants, whatever you need. Great casual wear as well. Go see Sterling, Dan, and the fantastic crew over at Mr. Dirk. As we say, a happy Monday morning to the man, Jason Strudwick. Struddy, how was Father's Day, my good friend? How was it in the Strudwick household? Were you worshipped? Were you appreciated? Were you made to feel the way that a dad wants to feel on Father's Day?
Well, first off, happy belated Father's Day to you and all our dads out there listening. I'm not going to complain about it. Didn't go how I expected. I had this vision of golfing with my kids and going for a bike ride. And the rain just kind of brought it down. So, to be honest, we ran a few errands and then we watched a bit of Survivor episode or season 44.
Survivor, that's the family show?
Well, no, it happened, but it was raining. It was like, what else are we going to do? So we put that on. I had a bit of a nap during it, and then we went over to see my parents and my sister and her family. Okay. So it was a good day, but in my mind, I wanted to go on this long bike ride and get some lunch and then come back, maybe golf. It was not happening. It rained, for those of you not in Edmonton, it rained a ton the last little while here. So it was a no-go. No bike zone yesterday.
Yeah, so not only was it Father's Day yesterday, but it was my oldest son Noah's birthday. And of course, he's the one that's moved to Saskatoon. So he was the first one out of the house. But he drove home yesterday after work. So yesterday was Father's Day for me, birthday for Noah. He got home last night. And so we're going to celebrate today. But for me, you know what it is? Because I had the same visions too, like outside golf and all that stuff. What we settled on was ordered in some food, like we went out to a restaurant, but we didn't, just ordered in. And we sat and watched the new Our Planet on Netflix, season 2. For some reason, those nature shows for me, they strike a funny chord, bud. They make me feel so, I think it's because remember when the original Planet Earth came out, like years ago, and all that amazing photography and, the Arctic ice dolphin, like David Attenborough with his, like that whole thing that it was amazing when they did it. I watched it with my dad and we all watched it together as a family, right? So years later, they're still making these things. So I love settling in and watching those Planet Earth shows with the kids. And that to me was like the perfect Father's Day feel.
Well, that sounds pretty nice. A couple generations of good memories there.
Yeah, no, 100%. But what a day it was sports-wise. That's what made the rain feel okay, right? Because, we had a ton of stuff to dig into. U.S. Open was the final round there. The F1 race, no shock. Max Verstappen wins that. He wins everything, wins pretty much everything. I think he won it, didn't he? Yeah, he won it. And that finish of the U.S. Open was awesome, was really good. So Wyndham Clark, just grinding. Can you imagine the pressure of having, we're going to get to the Oilers, by the way, folks, and we are live streaming this morning on Twitter and on YouTube. But just basically sat with it on TSN all day yesterday because they had all the good events were on the mothership yesterday. But can you imagine trying to win your first major and having Rory McIlroy nipping at your heels the whole way?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I was kind of in and out watching it a bit. Yeah, and when you're challenged by a great, and I think Rory, we can say, if not the best, one of the best of his generation. Oh yeah. And you withstand that. I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think that's a big period of growth as a human because you're like, I've done it already. You think back to when Tiger Woods was at his best, and how many people just faded out when Tiger's 3-stroke. Oh, he's 2-stroke. Oh, he's 1-stroke, and you're just done. And to hang in there, I give him a lot of credit. I think that's a huge win for him. And I don't know if he's going to go on a tear here, but I think that it's weathering that storm with that guy coming behind you. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And the emotion when he won it too, like he had just, they bottle it up, right? They have to just take all that excitement and put it on some weird shelf for like 4 or 5 holes while they're trying to close it out. So they just take it and they stick it on some shelf and it sits there growing and building. And the thing that was impressive to me, I don't know if you saw the way it finished, he had like a 50-some footer. And he needed a 2-putt for the championship from like, and it wasn't a terrible putt, but it was uphill and it was kind of, so he needed a 2-putt for the US Open. Like, and he left himself with 18 inches. That was money. That was impressive because can you imagine if you left yourself with a 6-footer to win the US Open? I mean, he could have made that 2 knee knockers in a row and he left no doubt. That was impressive to me, Struds.
Yeah, smart. But, he's made that putt 1,000 times right in his head and he's practiced it and all that. And now that I get older, I really do respect the time that people put into their craft and why they win. It's not luck. No one's born with natural talent. It's time. You put time into anything really, but sports related for sure. And he's made that putt 1,000 times. So, 1,000,000,000 times probably. So I think it's good for him. It's funny to see all the Canadians had a tough week. Or a weekend. They're out of juice, like all those guys. And I'm not being critical, but it was such a huge and emotional win last week out in Toronto at the RBC Open. I think that you have to be completely prepared and rested and focused, and the Canadians just weren't.
Yeah, the Canadian golfers weren't this week for some reason. Hey, were they celebrating something or what was going on there? And
I get it.
Yeah. I don't think Vegas could repeat the Stanley Cup final this upcoming weekend. I feel like if they played again this weekend, they might not have a great chance at winning. Boy, are they having a fun time, eh? Snap.
Yeah, what's with the shirts? No one's wearing shirts anymore in these championship parades.
Would you ever go no tarp in a championship parade?
What's funny is I was thinking of trying to put myself in that position when I was now there's I'm more mature, right? When I was 25 or 26, when I had my shirt off, I don't know. I mean, those guys came in gunned and they left gunnered. They were at it. So I don't know. I'd like to think I'd be like Marchessault was you could see he was having a good time, but he wasn't just completely buckled. I don't know. I honestly, Shogger, I don't know. And I think that scares me a little bit. Maybe it's a good thing I never won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, because you just never know. Well, and on stage with the microphone. So you got the mic and, he's doing his thing and you can tell he's had a few. Whatever, they're having fun, right? Then he starts dropping the F-bombs. And then that's when the someone from the PR staff starts pulling flybys. But she didn't want to just take it away. So she walked up, grabbed, shook it, tried to pull it away and then walked off stage. And then she pulled another flyby a minute later and tried to grab it and walked off stage. And he's just standing there like this. And she was trying to get the rest of the team to help. It was, a little, if there were kids out there, not the best language, but the boys had a ton of fun. And I can only imagine the parade in Vegas. That would have been something. As I mentioned before, we are live streaming on Twitter and YouTube. Definitely we'll take whatever comments you have for us today on the stream. So by all means, chime in. We don't have Zuby today, but I'm tracking him here. So go ahead and send him in. The discussion point today is going to be about the Oilers as they head towards the draft and free agency. And, just kind of how Oiler fans are feeling about what they'd like to see done. What do you think is realistic? What do you think they should be trying to get done? What should they be targeting? And Struds, you and I will just have a nice, calm discussion about that. I'll repeat. And that'll be our breakdown brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. They supply some of the nicest maintenance-free fencing and decking products out there. If you've always had that wood fence in your backyard and you know it's getting to be time to get rid of it, or that wood deck, because you just don't want to paint and stain and sand and do all that elbow work, throw in a beautiful maintenance-free deck or fence from DLR Vinyl Products. They got locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. So I was looking at the Oilers draft slots coming up here, Struds. They've got a 2nd, a 6th, and a 7th. That's it. So for an entire staff that spends the whole year grinding and coming up with a list that, your big long list of who needs to go where and all that, and then, team trades away all the picks. It doesn't mean that work is for naught, though. That effort that they put in coming up with that list, you never know when it might serve you well. But from the outside looking in, it's like they don't have a ton of actual draft work to get done in Nashville.
No, they don't. Well, what about the development camp that they have in early July? Hey, let's bring everybody in. three of them? Should we bring all three of them in? And maybe there's a few free agents or undrafted players they'll bring in. And I know previous draft, but it's pretty thin. It's pretty thin what they have to offer there. I always believe you got to try to keep adding to your talent, to your group. Always try to bring more people. So we've talked a lot about, or we have spoken in the past about trading down. And I keep reading that this draft is pretty deep and you can get a good player in that second round. I might just keep that pick if I'm really locked in on a player.
Yeah. So it doesn't become about at bats for you, like, because you can swap that second, you can turn it into a third and a fourth, and then the wisdom there is you get 2 at bats instead of 1. But I like the point you're making. If it's a deep draft, that's a pretty quality at bat that you're going to want to take.
Yeah, and you drop down another 30 spots, or let's say it's even 15. Like, what do you get there? And so, if you feel confident about who you got in the second, I take that second rounder. There's been a lot of good players in the history of the draft go in the second round. So I would probably, I would. Yes, I am normally about quantity. In this case, I'm going pure quality if I feel that I've got a guy at 2. Or in the second round, I should say.
Yeah. Lots of stuff coming in on the stream, and Struds and I are going to get to that in our takeaway segment. So keep the questions coming, and I'm going to circle back, and we're going to address some of that. So there's the actual calling of the names, and there's not going to spend a lot of time on stage. In fact, none, because rounds 2 through 7 get done from the tables the following day. But there's lots of other business that potentially gets done. Making a hockey trade, figuring out a way to improve in a deal that works financially, but improves you in the moment, that can make sense for another team. Like Dregs was saying the other day, it's probably easier to get done in the off season, and that's why we see a lot of activity in and around the draft. But the way the Oilers cap is set, and they don't have a lot of money, we know there's going to have to be bodies out. They're going to need to have teams take these players who probably make a little bit too much money. It's tricky, Struds, and I'm not sure if it's going to be there for Ken Holland to pull off that hockey deal where we're all looking at it after the fact going, oh, look at that. That actually made sense, and I think they might have gotten a little bit better. I'm not sure that's going to be there for the taking this year.
Well, let's look back at one of the trades they made, Zach Kassian. That was a clear salary dump, right?
Oh, yeah.
They were like, we're moving this guy out, and arguably they got better because now they had cap space. Right? Not arguably, they had cap space to function. When you look at this Oilers roster, there are very few contracts where you're thinking that's a bad deal and they need to get rid of it. There are some that are maybe slightly high, like I think Yamamoto's contract is high for what he's produced and maybe for what you think he might produce. In what role is he? A second line or third round, or where do you think he fits in? Fogle, he might be another guy in that area. Obviously, Jack Campbell. I think there's a version of Jack Campbell coming this season. So I think it's unlikely you can trade that contract, but I also think there's a good chance that he kind of bounces back. So, there's not but if you go through the rest, like, is Bouchard, you're going to have to sign him to a new contract. Is Ekholm overpaid? I don't think so. Like, go around the team. There's a lot of guys that are living up to what their contracts are at. So the Oilers unfortunately caught in this awful set where the salary cap hasn't gone up in step with what they needed it to do. So you got to squeeze it tight to find a way to find some way to manage a little bit of cap space.
Yeah, and some questions coming in on the stream about who would go if there were to be trades, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. The question I have for you, buddy, is this. If the Oilers return the same blue line, exact same blue line that they finished with, and remember, they gave up 3.5 goals against in the playoffs. Goaltending, part of that for sure. Penalty kill, part of that for sure. But if they return the exact same blue line, is that okay? Is that an okay place to start from to build off of next season? Or do they need to be reasonably aggressive about trying to make some sort of upgrade there?
Well, first off, let me stop you in your anti-D crusade, right? Stopping goals isn't just on the D-men, right? I know you were forward.
I said goaltending and penalty kill.
3.5 against. We got to get the D-men. Like, let's just talk about. Let's just be honest and
open about. Do I speak like that? You literally just started talking like Steve Urkel. Is that what I sound like to you?
When you criticize D-men, that's all I hear.
That's what I do. Oh, they got to.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. So number one,
brutal, buddy.
Yes, they allowed too many goals last year. But that is not solely on the D. Yes, there's responsibility, but that is a team concept.
Maybe not us, not them, not our fault. Typical D-man.
This is the truth. I'm speaking the truth here.
Okay.
So, number one, it's a group effort about stopping goals. Now, I think that the goalie Skin will be, taking even another step after a great year, and Nate Campbell will improve. So that helps. That gets a little bit better back there. Up front, I think those forwards have to really think about how they manage the puck, and when they don't have the puck, where do they go and what do they do? So I think that's an area they got to talk about. But when it comes to the D men, and I will speak about them now in gentle tones,
I know you will.
I'm bullish on three guys.
Softballs coming here. Everybody's so good.
No. I'm bullish on three guys to improve. Let's start with number one, which is CC. There was rumors all year that CC was injured and wasn't able to physically do what he wanted to or had done the year before. So I think that the time required to rest is now. I think he'll get himself back in shape and ready to go, and we'll see a better version of CC more consistently next year. Small improvement.
Okay, so small improvement potential from CC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you have Evan Bouchard. Playing beside Ekholm would be great for any D-man, but specifically for Bouchard. We know where the weaknesses in his games are today and what they are. And I think bringing Ekholm beside addresses a lot of that and helps him out a lot. Playing beside him, he'll also learn to feel when he's in trouble. I don't think Bouchard knows when the world's closing in on him. He doesn't have that spider sense that 200, 300, 500, 1,000 NHL games gives you. He doesn't have it yet. Playing beside Ekholm will help that and help him understand that, whether it's game management, a moment in time in a game about taking risks or managing risks, Ekholm will help him round that out. So again, there'll be another small improvement from another right shot defenseman.
Oh, I know what's coming next. Look at you. You're getting all excited.
Guy, the big man. I have a
big man, defensive minded. Hey, it's like a mirror. You're staring in a Vinny Desharnais shaped mirror.
And maybe at times a little bit mean, Vinny Desharnais. He is a 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, coming in as a 12th round pick, and coming and making this team and having a positive impact on the team in a way that they didn't have before. And playing your first NHL season, you're trying to figure out, you're just trying to make it, and every game is like so exciting. But now he's had a chance to sit and process his year. I hope he took time and took stock of what went well on a sheet of paper, and he writes down what needs to improve. And I think the area he needs to work on, and we've seen it at practice, is working on his puck skills. And those are things you can work on. I'm not saying he's going to become Patrick Kane, but he can work on his puck skills. And those can be done both on and off the ice over the course of an off season. So I'm going to say they were done May 15th, and we'll take it right through till September 15th. What is 3-4 months he has time to work on those skills. So I think we'll see an uptick in his play. I'm not talking about a guy who's going to win the Norris Trophy, but when you are better with the puck, you don't have to look down your feet or look at your puck on your stick. Your head is up, and those plays come easier because you're able to make them because you see them faster because you're not focused on handling the puck. So another uptick. So I see the three right-shot defensemen all improving this upcoming season.
What about regression? Like, does everybody always uptick? I mean, don't you? If you look at a 6 or 7 man blue line, isn't there normally some regression somewhere? Do you worry about that? Where's their regression? Is Bouchard going to be as good as he finished? Or, I mean, I don't know where the regression comes from, but someone's going to.
Well, okay, so to be fair, we saw regression from CC last year. Now, I can only go on what I've heard is that there was an injury there, so that is why it caused a regression. Darnell Nurse, in the prime of his career, I'd have a hard time seeing him regress. In fact, I think there's some areas he can clean up again, and he's a hard worker. He'll figure it out. Ekholm is at a stage in his career where he's very smart and very savvy, and that spider senses I talk about, he has that. He knows when there's trouble coming. Also, when he can create trouble for the other team, and we saw him score some goals like that, jumping in the offensive zone. And then Kulak, I also believe he's kind of in the prime of his career. So I don't know that regression is a fear factor for me on the left side. And I think on the right side, I think it's just improvement going up at the stage of these guys' careers. What do you think?
Interesting. Yeah, no, buddy, I hear you. Everything you say makes sense, and I can see the room for improvement. It's just it doesn't always go that way. It just doesn't. It doesn't always, and that's I think a team can get itself in trouble if they're looking at it with rose-colored glasses to the point where they just assume there's going to be an uptick for everybody. There's always something that goes wrong. There's always some regression. I do believe they're okay returning the same group, though. I do. Because they had that group and they were one of the best teams in the game basically from February on, right? That doesn't happen by accident. So, yeah, it got away from them a little bit in the playoffs, in a few different ways. But I think they assembled a pretty good group, and I think they're okay if they start there. I don't think that's the group they hit game one of the playoffs with, though. I think there will be a different defenseman on the Oilers for game one of the playoffs next season. That will be my, June 19th prediction. There will be at least one different name in their top four. Unless somebody's blown the doors off and CC or Darren or somebody has done something that we didn't expect them to.
So, your point's well taken and well made about the regression from one of the six, and I can understand that. But let's not also forget that there needs to be improvement defensively from everybody else that's on the ice. I'm going to put the goalies in there, and this isn't because I think Skinner had a bad year. I believe that Skinner will continue to take steps. Now, the step might not be another huge step like we saw this year, but I think he will improve. Just by virtue as a young player, right? I think Campbell will improve and have a bit of a bounce back season. I'm bullish on what he can do next year. Yep. So just right there, like even if we just think that it's a 1% improvement from there, that's a number of goals off that went in from the goalies. Then up front, I believe this can't be a conversation with the players and the coach where you say, hey, we want to be better defensively. There has to be a commitment to it. And there's a difference. People love talking about losing weight, Shogger. Oh man, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to get on the treadmill and the whatever. I'm walking my dog every day. But when it comes to it, do they really do it? Most people don't. Same thing with commitment to being good defensively every single game of the year and every shift, every time you get ready, because every time you hit that ice, you have to have that attitude because it doesn't just turn on game 83. So I think the group will be way tighter. That's unfair. The group will be incrementally tighter defensively than they were last year. And that also helps the D. So when I talk about that improvement on the right side, I think it's fair. And I don't think that's a wild suggestion. Talk about the improvement from the goalies and you talk about the commitment from the forwards and the group to be tighter defensively. I think all that bodes really well for this group of six defensemen and hopefully the Oilers group because they need to lower their goals against. It is not no more we can win anyway. No, we're going to win the way that wins championships. Check out Vegas.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Okay, let's get to takeaways. And we want listener takeaways today. And that's brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC, the big, beautiful dealership just off Baseline Road. On the way into Sherwood Park, Canada's #1 GMC dealership for 5 years running across the country. They got a great streamlined process over there. I bought a truck there not too long ago. They make it really easy for you. Really cool, chill, relaxed sales staff. Phil runs a tight ship over there. They don't take up a ton of your time. They make it quick, they make it easy, and they actually have vehicles in stock. So go see the great crew over at Sherwood Buick GMC. That's just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. Let's head to some of the mentions here, Struds. And thank you, everybody, for your contribution. So circling back, we're getting some nice comments here. Good to hear some morning sports radio or podcasting from 1260 _SN. Thank you. We are really happy to be here and happy to be doing this. Somebody else chimes in and says, I still get Strudwick and Rishaug in the morning. Awesome. We appreciate that as well. Again, happy to be here and doing this. Okay, Pesci rumors are going around. What are your opinions of him? This from Aiden7389. We talked a little bit about Pesci the last podcast we did, Struds. My information is it's going to be too expensive, both in acquisition cost and in extension on a new contract. I absolutely agree with what Dreg said, that the Oilers would have lots of interest in Pesci, and I'm sure that they were kicking tires. My sense is the whole thing is too expensive.
I love Pesci. Of course I love him on my team. And I said it, quiet eats minutes, right? And that's the type of D-man he is. He's a very quiet defenseman, and that's a compliment, right? He just does his job, just comes and punches his 20, 25, whatever, 22 minutes a night. I'd love to see him beside Nurse, but I don't love the idea of just a rental for the Oilers, and the acquisition cost would be through the roof. And then any extension would be massive as well. So I just don't see it as a fit right now. Again, the Oilers, if the cap was in a different place, if it had bumped up by a meaningful or significant amount, we'd have a different conversation. But the Oilers aren't in that world. And quite frankly, most of the top teams aren't. are not in that situation. You go around and look at all the top teams, not a lot of them have cap space in any meaningful way.
Yeah, that cap, there's all these rumblings around as you talk to, you chat with insiders and even as we talk to people from organizations. One of the things you hear is there's this undercurrent of it might go up more than we expect. Might be more than just the million, or could see a little bit more of an uptick, but it's hard for anybody to actually really bank on it. Blake Giblin says the goalies need to stop more pucks. Countless times last season, Skinner or Campbell would let in multiple goals under 10 shots. So goals happening too early and too often. In the grand scheme of the Oiler uptick in defending and cutting down goals against, what percentage would you put on it in terms of goaltending, Struds? What percentage of it is on the goaltending to be better? I'm going like 30, man. I'm going like 30. And I'm talking about the playoffs here. I'm talking about the playoffs. I think that, and Skinner, I'm not blaming him. He was a rookie doing it all for the first time. Campbell needs to be significantly better than he was during the regular season. Skinner, I'm sure they hope will improve. I think of the Oilers' overall need to be better defensively, I'm putting 30% of that on the goaltending.
It's a really good question.
It's math, and it's my passion, Struds. Yeah. It's math, and it's my passion. Yeah.
I'm going to go at 20%. And I know there are some goals that you'd like to have back, but every team has that, right? I don't think there's very few goalies who are like, oh, that guy was perfect this year. I honestly think I might even go later. I might go 15%. I'm going to go with 15%.
You're blaming the D even more? 85% the D-men's fault, Struds?
The D were fine. The D are except 1% of the issue. 84% on the forwards.
Okay, no. I'm going to make you come up with a percentage there. That's the question I should have asked you. And the Oilers need to be better defensively. Yeah. What percentage of that is on the D-men versus the forwards? Struddy, chapter chair of the D-men's union.
Yeah. So I'm going 20% goalies, 40 forwards, 40 D. And because I think that...
Oh, you politician.
But this is why when you talk about overall team defense, I don't want to point the finger at one group or the other. Right. Were there times where the Oilers didn't back check correctly or bailed out? Yeah, there were. But were there also times where the D-man made a bad read and went in, it was too easy? 100%. So all those things, they all add up, right? And just think if each player this year, and maybe we'll go by percentage minutes played, but we're able to improve their defensive play by 5%, just to make it easier. How many goals against does that come off the board, right? Or if they take their most two glaring errors off the board, so whatever, and that might be a bit hard for a guy's only playing 5-6 minutes, but we're talking, what is that? That's 30-40 goals against, now that's a huge improvement. And I'd have to go back and look at the math where that would put him in terms of against the whole league. But and I'm talking 5-on-5 and specialty teams. So it does make a big difference. And we're not talking about, just becoming going from from average to completely perfect, but you've got to make it better. Doing the same thing defensively next year as it did this past year will not bring them a Stanley Cup. That is clear. We've already seen this a couple times. So I keep bringing it up. I keep talking about it because it's a huge talking point. Oilers fans, you want to improve the scoring and you want to get better here and there. But defensively is where it is at. If you did not watch Vegas through 4 rounds, you don't know how important it is to defend well. Look at Florida. Could really get nothing going for most of that Stanley Cup playoffs, a final. And they need to get to that mentality.
A great question comes in here from CK Pawn, I think. CK Pawn. Yeah. Do you feel the Oilers need to acquire Stanley Cup winning veterans on their team? Vegas was full of them. And the Oilers didn't have any. A couple guys had been to finals, but that experience was missing from the Oiler room, Struds. Do you think that's a must-have for a team to get over the hump? And I wish I had the stats on me on teams that have won the Cup with no Stanley Cup championships in the room. Don't have that off the top of my head. But do you think that it's important? When you think about your playoff times and you looked around the room and there's a Cup winner sitting there, a guy who's been there, does it mean something?
It does. And, for Vegas, they had their top pairing was 2 guys that won a Stanley Cup.
Great point by you.
And Pietrangelo. Yeah. Barbashev was also in there. They had a lot of guys. And then Jonathan Quick. I have to admit, I apologize, Jonathan Quick. I didn't understand the value he had in that room. He wasn't even playing, but the value he had in the room for Adin Hill and others. Just that Stanley Cup pedigree, right?
Yeah, you chirped him hard for carrying the cup around like that, going so early. And
no, I didn't chirp him hard. I chirped about there was 10 goalies out there.
Oh, how many goalies there were? Yeah.
Bring your goalie to work day, right? So
you would have never done that if it was a D-man, Struds. You'd have never been that hard on him.
You could never have enough. So the problem, Shogger, is that who is this guy and how do you fit him under your cap, right? So there are players out there that won Stanley Cups that I'd love to see, on that team, but I don't know. They had Duncan Keith last year or 2 years ago. So who's the guy and where do you slot him in? Is it a third line guy? So who's a third line guy that's going to play for $1.5 million that's won a Stanley Cup? And how old is he? Is he, so I do think that that's maybe something you can add via trade during the season, right? Maybe that's a guy you can say, okay, we're going to bring this guy in, whomever, later on in the situation. But man, having Angelo and Martinez, two guys that have won it as your top pairing, you don't think that helps McCabe, Whitecloud, Haig, Theodore, all these guys? It makes a big difference, buddy. I think it does help.
Yeah, no question. Going to keep going here on the Weiss Johnson Twitter and YouTube mentions. And a reminder, with 45 years in the business, if you need a new furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or any of those things serviced, Weiss Johnson is absolutely the place to go. Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, plumbing services. Give them a call, 780-463-3096. Always have lots of great specials on as well. So Google them and check them out. You know the jingle. You love the jingle. Weiss Johnson, okay, back to the YouTube Weiss Johnson mentions here. The centers, this is from some stranger, the centers definitely need to puck watch less often, significantly less. Puck watching is an interesting one, Struds. It's you're waiting for an opportunity to head the other way to go generate offense, so you're watching instead of looking around and seeing who you should pick up. How much do you think, when you talk about the forwards, how much do you think kind of attention to detail and being more aware in that slot area where it seemed like guys were left open and left available quite often? Is it about effort level and willingness, or is it about kind of attention to detail and discipline?
I think it's about just shifting your focus, right? And listen, Connor and Leon have done amazing things for this club, and they've done amazing things individually. There's no doubt about it. And to be a better defensive team, those two guys might have to change the way they play a little bit, right? And they have to be for themselves and when they're on the ice, but also for the rest of the group to show players this is how it is now. This is how we're playing.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. That is a willingness to change how you play, to be more focused on. It's not that they don't want to win, but it's about just that attention to detail every single time you get on the ice. And it's hard. I know it's hard to do it when you're that gifted and that skilled to make plays. I get it. You want to go and score, and that's how you think you help. But maybe, you know what? Can they win a significant amount of their games by 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 during the regular season? So they're programmed for that. When Matthias Ekholm arrived here, he said we have to be comfortable going into the third period 1-1 and winning that game. Or, and times we see against Vegas where I think it was 2 periods or 2 games where it was close, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 it got away from them in the second period. Right. Just staying in that groove. It's okay. It's 1-1. It's okay, guys. It's okay. We're going to win this. We're going to win this later on. Just keep doing our thing. Don't give the other team the chance. And those are the lessons. And I'm not just looking and blaming Connor and Leon, but that is the mentality the whole group has to adopt to win a championship.
For sure. One of the things I think about is offensive players when they're in the offensive zone, and you think about the aggressiveness and the veracity that they chase pucks. I think about it. If there's a loose puck, like what Draisaitl does to try and go get it back, what McDavid, if they see it, they sense it, they are on it. And in the defensive zone, if you think about that same thing, is there that exact same desperation level? Is there that exact same hunger, extra second, third, fourth effort? You got to want it back as bad in the D zone as you do in the offensive zone. And they often had it, but I think all offensive players, it must just feel different in the defensive zone, right? You're just wired different. It just feels different in the defensive zone. When in the offensive zone, it's like you're on your toes and it's go, go, go time and we're in kill mode. But how do you harness that and bring that same energy into the D zone? And the real good defensive players are every bit as desperate to get it back in that zone.
Yeah, 100%. And It's just a general philosophy or an idea that you want to have. And I think this also lends itself to a conversation about the ice time for those two big guys. How do you trim that down a little bit so they can stay fresher throughout the whole year? And I'm not saying that they were tired, but you just want to make sure you kind of keep the miles off them as much as possible. So I'm not talking about bringing them from, what did they average? I think they're around 23, 22 minutes, somewhere in there, down to 15 minutes. But can you get them closer to 20, right? And get more of the four lines involved. The one thing and I'm always comparing with what a Stanley Cup champion does. Vegas rolled four lines, right? And they were hard to play against. Were there times they played their number 1, 2 guys? Yeah, they did. There's no doubt about it. But, having everyone involved in it makes a big difference.
All right. Great conversation, pal. We shouldn't bolt today before we at least address what happened with the Elks. 22-0. A CFL shutout, Struddy. Man, that is so... The mind-numbing thing is they had the football more on offense. They had more possession time than BC had and just couldn't punch it in, couldn't get it done. Totally shut out. I'm not sure how much of the game you caught. I watched as much as I could stand. That was tough, man. That is not a good start to the season.
Yeah, I watched quite a bit of it. And, it feels like they shoot themselves in the foot. Like they're having a good run and then they fumble it, right? Or, just a penalty or a missed throw behind someone. Like it's just always just off a little bit. Yeah. Even that opening drive, like they were lucky 2 times they lost the ball and they got it back, right, from a challenge from the referees. Like it's just, they just feel a little bit off. There's some good things happening, but it's just I feel like they're hurting themselves.
Are there good things happening? I mean, the defensive side of the ball, I guess, but
and there's some like decent, like there'll be some nice runs, like and then all of a sudden they fumble it, like just things that you need to just clean up and can't happen if you're going to win the game. So yeah, not the start they wanted.
Yeah, not at all. And, the play calling, I'm not going to profess to be some offensive wizard in the sport of football, but I know what sort of creative and, effective play calling is supposed to look like. And it just seems to me like they're not clicking. They're not finding the right play in the right moment. They're not hitting. They've got these new weapons around them. They're trying to figure out how to make use of them. They haven't really had it click yet. I don't know. Does it take a few games for these guys to click? Is that why? Because they've added basically 3 brand new high-end receivers and as targets. I don't know. Patience, I guess. They're going to go at it again this weekend and try and break that home losing streak. But for Elks fans, I'm not sure how much more patience there is. That had to be frustrating. If you invested in the first game and went, and then you watched that game, you got to be frustrated right now.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's you want to come out of the gates good. You're feeling good. You had a tough year last year. You want to come out firing, and it just doesn't feel like they're there. And they just feel like they're off, right? And I don't know what that is in football words, but it is. They are off in different parts of the game, and it's hard.
Absolutely, they are. Okay, Struds, good pod today, man. Definitely want to thank everybody that chimed in on the pod stream. We're going to try and do this as often as we can. Love some interaction with our listeners. By the way, saw lots of comments today talking about TSN 1260, talking about the crew that was on there. Somebody chimed in and said, let's do the reverse mandate. Let's get Dusty on and reverse roles for a guest interview from Doug DHB. Some asking, why aren't you having 1260 hosts on your podcast? This is what I'll say. We'd love to have the crew join us. In the aftermath of something like that, I think everybody takes a little bit of time and a little bit of space, but love those guys. They're all great friends and would love to have them come spend some time here on Got Your Back, but we'll give them a little bit of space, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from them all soon. By the way, how cool is it what the Elks decided to do? $12.60 tickets and a special section where the TSN 1260 crew is going to be at next weekend's game, chatting with fans, telling stories. I thought that was a really nice gesture by the Elks. As mucky as the football has been, Struds, on that side of it, I thought that was really cool.
It's really cool. And the Riverhawks are doing the same thing as well. I believe it's next Wednesday. So, I think there was a spot in the community for it, and people loved it. But I love that the professional teams are organizing it.
Yep. Awesome. And listen, I got to head to the draft. We're going We're going hard and heavy at the draft this year at TSN, so I'm not going to be able to be there on the weekend. I'm heading to Nashville quite early this year, but it's going to be a great event. We'll try and drop another pod a little bit later this week. Hey, pal?
I love it.
Sounds good, my man. Love doing this with you. Thank you.
Likewise. See you guys later.
Okay, cheers, buddy. That is Jason Strudwick, and that'll wrap the podcast today, folks. Thanks so much for your contributions, for your comments, and a big thanks to our sponsors as well. Mr. Dirk, our title sponsor, DLR Vinyl Products. Those are my brothers, Rick and Rob, so I have to thank them. Sherwood Buick GMC, Phil and the crew, and of course, Dennis and the awesome group over at Weiss Johnson. Hope you get off to a great start to your week. Hope we helped you with that a little bit. We'll talk to you again real soon. Cheers.